By the end of this video, I will be accused of being a radical leftist, a Zionist stooge, a CIA plant, a pathetic little anarch-kitty, a socialist, a fascist, and much worse. I want to talk to the international left. Not to the right, not to the triumphant Magazellanos in Doral, Florida, and not to the pundits. I want to talk to us, because right now our responsibility towards Venezuelans is being tested, and a lot of us are failing that test. Here are two uncomfortable truths that we need to be able to hold at the same time. Nicolas Maduro is not a revolutionary. He is a cynical dictator who has been oppressing his own people for decades, and United States intervention is not liberation. These two things are not in conflict, but judging by what you're probably seeing online, if you believe one, then you're being forced to reject the other. This is very much a false binary. Maduro's government is corrupt, repressive, and directly responsible for the destruction of Venezuela's economy, its labor movement, and many of its most treasured institutions, not to mention the wholesale collapse of its public health system. Most importantly, the collapse of Venezuela did not begin with US sanctions. It began years before through wide-scale mismanagement, intense repression, and the hollowing out of state services in the name of a revolution that stopped being emancipatory a long time ago. The anti-imperialist language remains, but the anti-imperialist practice does not. Maduro is a cynical, power-hungry dictator, not a revolutionary, which is why many leftist leaders across the world and leftist political parties and institutions, including the Communist Party of Venezuela, have all denounced his regime. Many Western leftists choose to ignore this entirely, instead flattening Venezuela into a geopolitical chessboard, turning Venezuelans into the pieces, just like they did with the Ukrainians, the Syrians, and, let's be honest, the Lebanese and the Palestinians. So here's the problem with that. When the international left refuses to confront the many crimes of the Maduro regime, then the only actors willing to apply any pressure on that regime are the United States and its right-wing allies. As a result, many Venezuelans, including most Venezuelan leftists, are pushed out of sheer desperation towards anyone who seems capable of ending the regime that's responsible for their oppression. Not out of ideological betrayal, but out of exhaustion, fear, and survival. Over the last few weeks, I have spoken with dozens of Venezuelan leftists, ranging from committed Marxist-Leninists to run-of-the-mill social democrats. Without exception, all of them have told me that they feel betrayed by the international left. At the same time, they understand that US intervention is not democracy. And they're getting a front row seat to that right now as the Trump administration has decided to work with former elements of the Maduro regime in order to turn Venezuela into an American client state. Venezuelan leftists understand that aligning with US oil interests is not a stable path towards self-determination. So no, Venezuelans are not gusanos and quislings for rejoicing at the downfall of Nicolas Maduro. And I am not both siding this issue. I'm taking the only coherent position left to take. Oppose a ruthless dictatorship without outsourcing the future of Venezuela to be a client of empire. Oppose imperialism without laundering literal authoritarianism into some kind of anti-imperialist virtue. Refuse the false choice between Trump-led neoliberal restoration and naked authoritarianism. Our responsibility is not to pick a savior for Venezuela. It is to listen to the Venezuelan leftists who have been completely shut out of the conversation. Not merely because nobody seems to want to hear their perspective, but also out of fear of speaking out due to political repression in their own country, either against them or against their families. We owe them solidarity that isn't cynical. Solidarity that names and confronts oppression. Solidarity that rejects intervention and centers Venezuelans. If you're a leftist, you need to check your geopolitical reflexes right now. What seems to apply in Lebanon or Palestine might not apply in Ukraine or Syria or Venezuela. If you can't do that, then you're not an anti-imperialist. You're an alter-imperialist. You're still a bootlicker, just with a different preference for boot flavor. There are way too many accounts to tag here for reference, so if you are a Venezuelan leftist, particularly one of the ones that I have spoken with, and most importantly, you feel comfortable and safe enough to share your experience, please do so in the comments below. Also, I have been in a 2-week battle with either COVID or some very weird flu, so I'm probably going to log off after this and not check back in a while. But I am going to try and get my thoughts down in a longer form article for you guys soon.